Capital One's tech team isn't just talking about multi-agentic AI. They already deployed one, Chat Concierge for car shopping. Their tech team built in self-reflection with live API checks to help buyers find a car they love. That's how they stack. That's technology at Capital One.
I'm Josh Christensen.
I'm David Salazar.
And this is Most Innovative Companies. On today's episode, Fast Company Senior Staff Editor Jeff Beer.
What do you do that no other brand can?
Instagram VP of Product, Tessa Lyon.
One of the things that we're always trying to do is show people the best possible reels for them.
And as always, keeping tabs.
It's called
Oh God.
Hot Ice Cream.
But first, here's the download. The news you need to know this week in the world of business and innovation.
The federal jobs report, delayed by the 43-day government shutdown, is out this week, showing that the labor market continues to cool down. The Labor Department published data from October and November showing that the unemployment rate rose to 4.6% in November, which is the highest it's been in 4 years. The delayed retail sales report was also out on Tuesday, showing a decline in October that demonstrated slowdown in consumer spending. Though analysts agree the numbers don't suggest an economic downturn, job searches are getting longer and inflation is running up against stagnant wages, which could further affect consumer spending.
Marketplace keeps rolling with the portmanteau meh economy.
Similar to
doesn't roll off the tongue for me.
The Kyla Scanlon TM vibe session still, I think, is the best explainer of what's going on.
Yeah, and it's just sort of like... It feels just like a slow descent into madness every time we have to report these numbers.
A little bit.
On Sunday, iRobot, not the Will Smith movie from 20 years ago, the company that makes the Roomba, filed for bankruptcy in Delaware. Roomba was a blockbuster release in 2002, but since then, iRobot has faced huge competition from other robotic vacuum companies and accrued debt. We talked to Shark Ninja earlier this year, the CEO of Shark Ninja, which is a huge competitor of Roomba. In 2022, Amazon tried to buy the company, but the acquisition fell through due to regulatory concerns. iRobot stocks have plummeted following the news, understandably. Going forward, iRobot will be controlled by its Chinese manufacturer, its largest debt holder, which will take ownership of iRobot as a private company once it exits the bankruptcy process.
Last Thursday, Disney announced a $1 billion equity investment in OpenAI and launched a 3-year partnership that will allow OpenAI's Sora video generator to use Disney characters. Sora will also have access to animated characters from the worlds of Marvel, Lucasfilm, and Pixar. At the same time, Disney will become a major OpenAI customer and use the technology to develop new products, tools, and experiences, though no detail on what exactly those will be. The partnership is huge for Sora and a big move from Disney, which famously guards its IP closely. However, the deal is only exclusive for a year, and Disney CEO Bob Iger told CNBC that after the first year, Disney's free to work with and license its IP to other AI companies.
I can't wait to make a video of me just dunking on Goofy. Mozilla, the maker of web browser Firefox, has a new CEO, Anthony Enzor DeMeo. Before this, Enzor DeMeo was the general manager of Firefox. Amid competition from AI-forward browsers like Perplexity's Comet, OpenAI's Atlas, and Opera, Enzor DeMeo's mission is to build trust around the browser as it embraces AI and adds new features. Are you a Firefox user or a Chrome user?
I use Chrome. I used to use Firefox. I don't know why I use it. I will say Firefox is a brand that matters this year, which we'll get into with Jeff later. Also a brand that matters, but in the news, Netflix is bolstering its position among podcast fans with huge deals announced this week with both iHeart and Barstool Sports. The iHeart deal announced Tuesday grants Netflix exclusive rights to stream more than 15 of iHeartMedia's podcasts, including talk show The Breakfast Club, true crime podcast My Favorite Murder, and advice show Dear Chelsea with Chelsea Handler. The Barstool deal, announced Wednesday, will bring the video versions of the sports podcast company's top shows to Netflix starting in early 2026. Barstool podcast with video exclusivity on Netflix will include general sports commentary show Pardon My Take, NFL and NBA focused The Ryan Russillo Show, and NHL commentary podcast Spittin' Chicklets. These deals follow the October announcements that Spotify and The Ringer would be bringing video podcasts of more than 15 shows to Netflix in early 2026.
I'm curious how this is going to go because the exclusivity deals take them off of YouTube and other platforms, which Spotify already tried and then walked back in the past year. I mean, Netflix is not Spotify, so this could go better, and it is a pretty small batch of curated podcasts, but I still just part of me still wants to hold on to the charm of podcasts being non-network dependent and being, or non-distribution platform dependent, and being a little bit more, to use a cliche, democratized.
Yeah, I think it's maybe Spotify's deal was too broad, but I think that it's smart that they're targeting sports fans and true crime people who are already probably pretty locked into Netflix.
The sports especially, I think with their push into live sports, live stream sports deals makes a ton of sense, and you can see the partnerships, the sort of creator-led programming around the Christmas Day NFL games that they could do it with some of these deals, and I'm sure they're looking to acquire more sports streaming rights going forward.
Yeah, should be interesting.
And finally, Merriam-Webster has announced its word of the year, and it is slop, a word most often attributed to this podcast.
Not by me.
The word has traditionally been traced back to Middle English sloppes. I don't know. This is the stupidest news item. Sloops, sloppes, sloppiness, slops, sloops, slops. Leave that all in. And then further traced to Old English, kuslop. I can't. A variant. I love this.
I'd love to know how any of this was pronounced.
Kuslop, a variant of kusleep or cowslip, in which slop is taken to mean dung or excrement.
Hell yeah.
Anyways, this is the sort of news analysis you're looking for on this podcast. But with AI, the word slop has gained new attention. According to Merriam-Webster, slop means, quote, digital content of low quality that is produced usually in quantity by means of artificial intelligence. You had this podcast nailed up until artificial intelligence.
Yeah, exactly. It can't be this
Humans
podcast.
make this slop.
And honestly, just by dint of that, it's not slop. Is it nutritious? Perhaps not. It's consider this the Totino's pizza roll of business podcasts.
And that's the news you need to know today. So, David.
Yes, Josh.
Actually, we just finished our newscast, but we do have a little bit of news to share that's more personal to this podcast.
Yes, it's such exciting news.
There is an MIC baby.
Woo!
Yasmin Gagne, our host, who you've heard on this podcast for the past 2 years, gave birth this past week and has officially started her maternity leave. Congratulations to her and her husband, Luis, who listeners may know from the many stories we've told, particularly about Luis crawling behind Yaz during an interview for one of our segments on this podcast because he thought he was off camera and had to get a jacket.
That was prep for fatherhood.
That guy's a father now. That's insane.
Yaz is actually the first person I know from college who's had a baby.
Oh, really?
Yeah, big distinction there for her.
That is cool. Yeah, you guys go way back. You were at Columbia together, working on the paper there. What is the paper at Columbia called again?
The Spectator.
The Spectator. I should know this by now, the amount of times that Yaz and you have brought it up.
I guess maybe, certainly people who worked there have had babies, but Yaz is probably the person I'm closest to from there who has had a baby.
Well, congratulations to Yaz and Luis. And so what that means for this podcast is you are going to hear some familiar voices as rotating co-hosts, one of which is David, who is kicking us off right now as our co-host.
Hello.
And you'll also hear Kristen Toussaint, who you've heard on the podcast before, Brian Lufkin, and Liz Segrin will be rotating in with David as my co-host over the next few months. We'll have some really cool segments and interviews that each of our guest hosts will be curating. So you're going to hear some different types of interviews and content on the podcast, all curated by these guest hosts. But then you'll also hear some of the stories and analysis you're used to hearing, particularly at the top of the show. We'll still have our newscast. We'll still be doing some of the biggest stories in the world of business and innovation to start the show. But then here's some different interviews.
Amazing. I was always told I had a face for podcasts.
All right, let's get into our show. It's December, which means it's the most wonderful time of the year. That's right, people. Fast Company's Brands That Matter list just published. I know that's what everyone looks forward to in December, right?
It's what I look forward to.
This year, we recognized 121 brands as well as 10 CMOs on our CMO of the Year list and some other breakout categories recognizing brand work as well. David, you co-led this list alongside senior staff editor Jeff Beer, so we invited Jeff back on the show and broke down the list. Hey, Jeff, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Jeff, we haven't had you on the show as much because you have your own podcast now, so you've sort of abandoned us for the cool new world of Brand New World.
Yes, it's I hate to say it, I miss you guys, but and the warm embrace of most innovative companies, but Brand New World has been a blast.
Don't subscribe. You can only listen to one Fast Company show, and Most Innovative Companies is it.
Erroneous.
But we should get into the reason why we're here. So, Jeff, you and David, once again, led our Brands That Matter package. This is how many years now?
It's the fifth
year. Have we done this? Fifth year that we've done Brands That Matter, and the second year that we've done CMO of the Year, which we'll get to in a little bit.
Indeed.
But let's start with an overview of this year's list. Jeff, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, for sure. So yes, this is the fifth year again of Brands That Matter. I believe the fourth year that David and I have teamed up on this, and that's been great. This year, we're recognizing we have 121 total honorees, and as always, it's divided between a longer list of brands that matter, and then additional winners in 9 categories, including, as you mentioned, CMOs of the year. But some other categories include, just to cut down a little bit on the apples to oranges comparison to a lot of different brands. It's like, okay, so brands that are in business for a certain amount of years, heritage brands aren't being necessarily judged equally against, a 3-year-old company or 3-year-old brand. And then also size of companies in terms of number of employees and that kind of thing. We do get quite a bit of applications. So the judges, David, myself, and a panel of other writers and editors go through about 1,200 applications. The term brands, this isn't just, stuff you see on the grocery shelves or your sneakers. Brands from all types of industries. But the thing that we try to focus on, the thread between them all, is their ability really to engage their audiences in a way that goes beyond just simply selling their product or self-promotion. It's more about, have they made a mark in broader culture, or they have a cultural relevance to the audience they wish to connect with. So it's not just about like virality, or did you have some sort of viral spot? Depending on your industry, you could resonate with that audience in a culturally relevant way specific to them, and that's just as legitimate. And the type of work that does that really is the work that a brand's ethos, its reason for existing, and builds on it in an engaging way.
Yeah. To his point, there are a lot of applications that you get and you're like, I don't really know what this thing that you're talking about has to do with the thing that you sell or the service you provide. And it doesn't always have to be like exactly there, but there are so many brands where I think that like a really good, strong piece of brand work is like, oh, this makes absolute sense in the world of this brand, even if it like is a little far afield. But yeah, so there was a huge range of companies this year, not just in terms of what they do, but we have a huge range there. We have this arcade company called All-in-One and California Pizza Kitchen and just, a ton. But, there's also a huge diversity in terms of how long they've been in business. Like Jeff said, like they're heritage brand honorees, 200 years in business. Sir Davis and Unrivaled, these were like their first few years in business, but they've all managed to make an impact. And in the case of Sir Davis and Unrivaled, obviously pretty outsized, but we really try to look for brands that are, what is it, Jeff? Business meets culture.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It really is. I mean, sometimes that feels like a bit sort of vague and sometimes I hate to say, I forget who said this, but there was some quote around about pornography where it's like, I can't define it, but I know it when I see it.
I know it when I see it.
And a lot of
brands that matter.
Yes, exactly.
I know it when I see it.
Yes, well, kind of.
And it's usually pornography.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
at
we
least
do have sex
and
products.
erotica.
We have Dame products, I believe.
Yeah, Dame products. Yeah, there we go. I know that when I see it. Well, I mean, when we were developing Brand New World, our podcast that is yours that we just mentioned, you always talked a lot about like it should have a pop culture ringer type feel to talking about this world. And I always thought the framing of brands that matter is simple and to the point, but it really gets to the heart of that remit. Like, if it's a brand that matters, it's making a cultural impact. Like, you are remembering it beyond just that cultural wallpaper of brand work or some of the more nitty-gritty stuff. It really breaks through from advertising to culture on par with TV, film, or anything else that we consume.
For sure. It's kind of like on the most basic level, it's like brands that it's not about, oh, you know what? They don't annoy me. They don't annoy the hell out of me. It's not that. It's brands that people, because as much as everyone likes to talk about as they hate advertising or they don't like, commercial culture in a certain way.
Yeah.
Everyone loves at least one brand. Like there's something about whether it's they came at it through the product was really good, but then they like the whole vibe. But we all have different reasons why we connect with a brand, but it is there. And obviously we don't connect with all of them, and those are the annoying ones. But then the ones that do make an emotional connection with us, whether through humor or just all kinds of different ways they do this. And so it's about that work. And one thing I definitely want to point out is like, I talk a lot, and David and I talk a lot about like brand purpose. And when we talk about that, there's this misconception where we're talking about like charity work or, social commentary and that kind of thing. To me, the brand purpose is the brand's purpose. Like, why do you exist? Not just why should I buy your thing over the other brand's thing. It's like, why do you exist? Why are you even making this? Like, what do you do that no other brand can in a way that you do? And that's kind of the part of the lens we look at this work through as well.
Yeah. And it's not like, okay, there can't be any sort of like giving back element. Like there are plenty of brands, like Liquid IV is one of them, where, they rebranded, they sell hydration powder. They had some activations that really engage people around their hydration mix, but also they used the sales to support access to clean drinking water. That fits within the brand purpose in a way that doesn't feel really forced, and it also is just part of the business. It's not like they're doing it for a gold medal or anything.
This is part of that brand's ethos and part of how they identify themselves. So it's not just like a completely random thing. It's part of the overall picture, which is what we're looking for.
Yeah.
So I want to go through some of the more specific companies. So I feel like the best way to frame this is we have our brands that matter. This is Fast Company, our voice. Within that list, what brands matter the most to you? Jeff, you want to start? Like, what are some of your favorite brands on the list this year?
Oh man, that's a good question. Sometimes it's like recency bias or like just like what I'm thinking of this week.
Yeah.
I mean, one was obviously Levi's, and it's obviously because I wrote a cover story for the magazine on Levi's and sort of focusing on their CEO, Michelle Gass, but how that brand has kind of been a steward for iconic Americana in a time where the brand of America maybe isn't as strong internationally as it's been. And yet Levi's selling their ethos of originality and design and just fashion and style has been doing gangbusters internationally, and sort of dug into that a bit. I really like, David wrote about for our CMO list, Chili's CMO George Felix. Quick little plug. He's going to be on Brand New World, our January episode. George is great, and the work that Chili's has been doing has been hilarious, between balancing the kind of TikTok virality of some of their triple dipper appetizer menu items and like their margaritas. The way I've learned they sell more margaritas than any other restaurant chain in America, which is insane to me.
Oh yeah, I believe that. I worked at Chili's for a little bit in college.
They moved those margaritas.
They moved those those triple dippers. Honestly, I love Chili's.
Nice.
And the fact that I worked there in the kitchen and waiting tables as well, and know what goes into that food, and the fact that I still love it, says something about
that.
It
Actually does say a hell of a lot.
Yeah,
I wrote about State Farm recently, but State Farm's CMO Kristen Cook's on our CMO list as well. For a boring insurance brand, they do a lot of cool stuff, including this kind of part game show, part reality series called Gamerhood, which has been doing really well. With again, I mean, this. I don't want to say like you can't get fired for working with Kai Cenat, but if you can get Kai Cenat to work with your brand, I mean, McDonald's did as well this year.
Kai Cenat made a few appearances on the Brands That Matter.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But to be clear, I mean, they're all pretty. I mean, they're all organic. Like, he's a fan of what they're doing, and you know, it when you're a streamer, it's got to be real, or it just really comes off terrible. So
yeah,
that's a few I really like. I'd also like. A weird one, like one that kind of I wouldn't have expected to be on this list, is Brawny paper towels, which
the Brawny stuff is fun.
Yeah, they kind of rebranded. They're like I don't know how you characterize Brawny in the world of paper towels, but not the top, not the incumbent, you know, like not Nike or Adidas of paper towels. And they just kind of embraced pop culture and like redid their Brawny Man mascot into this like bear, like macho dude, and made these funny ads with, I believe it was one of the contestants from The Bachelor. David, am I misremembering that?
Yeah. There was like some messy breakup that she'd gone through, and she's like, you know, I need someone strong like Brawny, and then the Brawny Man is like her new boyfriend, and he's like, hey,
Rachel
I
Kirkconnell.
got you.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Yes. That was fun. that was good. There's some unexpected ones. I didn't know Dame Products was, but like a sex toy brand. I mean, they're just connecting in ways that you maybe wouldn't expect. And actually, one of my personal favorites was Gozney, because oh yeah, I'm a pizza nerd, and how they've built that brand and around content with guys like Maddie Matheson and Frank Pinello, I think his last. He runs Best Pizza in Brooklyn, but he has a great YouTube series called Pizza with Frank that they do. So what they've done around their product, that's totally, sorry, pardon the pun, like baked into their who they see themselves as a brand, and how you use it. So it's part instructional, part entertainment. Yeah, I dig it a lot. David, what are your favorites, man?
One that I really enjoyed sort of digging into, I wrote about this for the print, is this company JLab, which you've likely seen like all over TikTok. It's a headphone brand. They've really built themselves up on TikTok, and they've done a lot. I mean, they have a ton of like brand ambassadors. That was a huge running theme of like companies that have sort of like a legion of brand ambassadors.
Yeah.
Bubble Skincare is one of them. They have like 84,000 brand ambassadors, and they just like review the products for free. But JLab, they have like sort of normal brand ambassadors, but they really tap into like college athletes. Yeah. And that includes like pretty big ones, big-ish notable ones. This guy, Juju Lewis, who's a quarterback for CU Boulder with Deion Sanders. And like when he committed to CU Boulder, he was on Pat McAfee show on ESPN. He was wearing the JLab headphones, and then it's like a content partnership now that he's at the school and playing in games there. But then also the CMO I talked to, Tara Teat, who's been there for like 12 years. And they're all really priced accessibly, like $30 to $60 maybe.
Yeah.
She's like, we're not elitist, we go for everyone. So they really do work with like college athletes with followings of any size. Like they don't have to have like 1 million followers.
Yeah.
And she knows, like, you know, small star players sort of have really committed followings, so you can influence really well. So JLab was a fun one to dig into. My editor, our executive editor, Amy Farley, wrote about Coors Banquet, which I'm biased because it was always like the cheapest tall boy at the bodega next to me in my first apartment. But like,
love the Coors Light tall boy.
A great beer.
Jeff's a fan of a tall boy. Jeff's a big tall boy.
Hey, what's my last name?
Oh yeah,
Pierce,
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, so their heritage of being from the West sort of played into collabs with Wrangler. They did a product partnership with or like a placement partnership with Yellowstone, had stuff in the aisles at liquor stores. I wrote about Eventbrite, and they sort of did this crazy tangential thing where they're like, okay, so we have a ton of data about what our users like what the sort of events they're going to. And they sort of do this every few months. They sort of tap into what big trends are happening. And they were like, all right, people are going to raves and they're going to cheese events. And so they were like, put your hands together, cheese rave. I was there at the cheese rave. I can say it was pretty fucking lit. Honestly, like in line, they were handing out little dime bags of cheese. They had guys in hoodies going through the crowd to hand out cheese. They had cheese-themed go-go dancers. The stage was a big block of cheese.
People just snorting cojita.
Pretty much, there were baby bells on the cocktails, and literally you went and they had a group of cheesemongers who would you filled out a form oh, what am I feeling today? And they would give you a tiny little cheese plate. It was.
Please tell me the DJ was Deadmau5.
I wish. Oh my God, that would have been funny.
Yeah.
Obviously, I was there, but online, it sort of became a thing that was really targeted. They targeted music press. They targeted food press. They targeted the right people, influencers on TikTok, to really raise awareness, not just of that it was happening, that it happened, but that Eventbrite is sort of here's where you go to discover this weird shit that you're going to be into, even if it's super, super niche.
That's awesome.
It's impressive.
I love that. Another common theme amongst the list, I feel like the brand collab will never die. It's just the gift that keeps giving. I look at Skims. They had a very high profile collab with Nike.
Absolutely.
We talked about a few other of these brand collabs. Is there any end in sight to these paying off?
I would say yes and no. I think the novelty of just a kind of rando collab is gone. I mean, collabs are kind of, depending on the product category you're in, are kind of now table stakes, depending on how you generate buzz and excitement around. But I think much like just brand work in general, the brands that are involved in collabs right now really have to think about their audience a lot more. They have to think about them deeper. What are people actually going to be stoked about? How do you get people excited and create something actually cool? And I think there's a balance between, to me anyway, that idea of something unexpected, something people maybe didn't know they wanted, and also enough availability, limited, but enough availability that it's not one of those impossibilities to get.
Yeah. I feel a great example of this, one that is a little random, but totally fitting, is Heinz and the Mustard collab with
DJ Mustard.
Not DJ, it's just Mustard.
Oh, sorry.
The super producer formerly known as DJ Mustard, because of
living in the past.
I learned this during copy editing this story. So.
Hey, this is why institutional journalism is important. Copy editing process.
Exactly.
Key to the journalism.
But yeah, so, the sort of name check of Mustard in Kendrick Lamar's TV Off, where he just shouts, Mustard, became, I think they'd had a collaboration with Mustard, whose real name is Dijon. I forget his last name. His first name is Dijon.
Mustard.
Dijon Mustard. That they teased at the Super Bowl, or no, they teased during the Grammys, teased Mustard X Mustard at the Grammys, and it was okay, what's this going to be? Kind of feel. And then it turned into a limited time Chipotle honey mustard, which was the first mustard product that Heinz put out in a decade. And it launched initially at Target and then to other retailers. And it's sort of here's a limited edition thing that is actually has its finger on the pulse, moved really quickly, and doesn't seem it's a little silly, but it's not stupid.
Put that on the box, David. It's a little silly, but it's not stupid.
I mean, we've seen some legit stupid breakthrough, which I think 100%. Is we've talked about brain rot content before on TikTok. Nutter Butter is a great example of this. Not on the list this year. Are they on the list? Wait, is Nutter Butter on the list?
They're not on the list.
Were they on last year's list?
They were not. No, were they?
They were on my MIC advertising list, though. Most of their companies.
Yeah. Nutter Butter is a brand that matters to Josh, to me, to this guy.
Oh, I'm sure.
Let's talk about some other trends. What are some of the other trends that you saw on this year's list?
Okay, obviously, one is the role that social media plays and how some of these brands are showing up for people. I mean, across multiple industries, there's brands getting creative with how to turn their fans into influencers. Going back to David's point about the 84,000 brand ambassadors. Is that JLab? Who was that?
Bubble Skincare.
Yeah. But one of their 84,000 social media ambassadors, 155 million views just sampling and reviewing products. So I mean, that is like an example of a brand kind of using social media and their connection with their audience to kind of activate them in a way that is like it creates, I mean, I don't want to overuse the word flywheel, but like that idea of like the more people, and people like to hear themselves in a way, hear from people like them about products. I'm not breaking news here, but the way a brand can tap into that is key. And I think we see a number of ways. I mean, I'll go back to just, again, recency bias, talking to George recently at Chili's when David wrote about this, like just the way they help with, I mean, he was telling me that there's so much social content now around the cheese pulls of their mozzarella sticks that like servers at Chili's are now like, and not like from some company directive, but just so like attuned to it that they'll be like, oh, here's a good camera angle for your cheese pull when they notice people at the restaurant. Like,
oh God, if only I still worked at Chili's.
Yeah, so I mean, you'd be right.
Cheese pull content.
Your combination of your theater background and the cheese pull, Josh, should be just fit in right. You missed your time.
When I was there, they had us make guacamole tableside, which was so stupid.
That's ridiculous for Chili's. I'm sorry, that's absurd.
It's ridiculous. It was at the time, I forget who was doing it. I think it might have been like On the Border or something, and they were trying to like just copy On the Border or something like that. It was pretty dumb, but like,
yeah.
That's terrible.
That's not what people are coming to Chili's for.
I just
they're
think
coming for the ranch,
yeah,
and they're coming for the triple dipper.
Well,
they're coming for the sizzling fajitas.
100%. And I do think that so the broader trend that Bubble is doing with their mass amounts of social ambassadors, but other brands are doing in other ways is, I think, more brands are finding more unique and interesting ways to, and again, this is becoming an overused kind of phrase or term in marketing and advertising circles, but it really is true, is like really kind of tapping into fandom in a way, because like a lot of things, if you can make things, whether that's collabs or products in your restaurants or actual just like ads or brand work that appeals to the hardcore fan, if the hardcore fans are on your side, that enthusiasm is infectious. It gets everyone else kind of on board. It starts to spin out of itself because people are talking about it. People are talking how other fans are reacting. Like, so more and more brands are really tapping into that. Again, like McDonald's does it with their Minecraft stuff and with things like taking international menu items and bringing them to other countries. I think that was called like the menu heist they did this year. But like these ways of like, they're trying to find ways to just get people stoked and really blowing it up. Like that is, to me, the key is like, and that always goes back to, kind of a basic tenet of marketing advertising is kind of like know your audience. And if you know them and you actually care about what makes them, not just what doesn't annoy them, but just what would make them laugh or get excited. Like that's what people are doing here. I think that focus on fandom and that ability to, ideally for the brand, I mean, kind of build a community around that is something we're seeing across a lot of different categories now that we used to maybe only see in a couple.
Right. And I'd say like on that, like Gap is a great example of that, where it's like even creating a fandom essentially among like Gen Z by doing these viral dances that they, it feels hack to talk about virality now, but like they really, really put a lot of effort into these and it pays off, right? They did it last fall with Troye Sivan. They did it in the spring with Parker Posey. And then they did it this fall with Cat's Eye. And I think it's like, it's so good, right? The choreography is insane. Yeah. The music is amazing, that what they licensed. Like they got Killies to record a new version of Milkshake. And it all sort of is in the service of saying, hey, look at how easily you can do whatever the fuck you want in these jeans, which is kind of like, you're not even, like, it takes a little bit of time to realize, like, this is what's being said to you because you're so distracted by how engaging the content is. And I think that is really, like, Gap is so good at that it's become part of their playbook and it's working.
Well, it goes back to what we started talking about with this segment in terms of like becoming part of pop culture in a way, but not losing your brand in the messaging. I mean, we are an advertising company to some extent as well here at Fast Company. Like, we sell ads, and part of our business model is branded content. The reason why people come to us for branded content rather than doing programmatic ads on any number of networks or next to something is because they want stuff that feels like Fast Company.
Yes.
And so when advertisers are able to create content that feels like the culture that people are consuming, i.e. cat's eye videos on TikTok or on TV, but the brand messaging is apparent and not lost in it, that's a major win.
Well, I mean, it's like, it goes back to, again, like the good brands have always done this, but more brands are thinking like this now, especially, we're in like decade 3 of like mass media fragmentation.
Yeah.
And I've heard this from a number of different CMOs and ad agency creatives or strategists, and like in saying it in different ways, but it comes down to, and to your point about us at Fast Company, it's like, the idea is you're looking at an idea, you're looking at a piece of work. If you're looking at this and you think someone else could do this, or this could be for something else, or this could be done by someone else, maybe you should keep thinking, because it's about that. Yeah. Is this actually true to your brand? And obviously it's like other brands could do it, but in terms of the way that you're planning to do it or want to do it, the angle you have on it, the point of view that you have, whether us as a media company or brand X as a brand, all the things we talked about earlier in terms of true to that brand's ethos and fit for that audience, but it also has to be that particular message told in that particular way can only come from you. And why is that? And go from there.
Yeah, let's pivot into CMOs of the year. Second year you've done CMO of the year. We've talked a little bit about Chili's and George Felix, and we talked a little bit about Kristen Cook from State Farm, but who else made the list?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great collection, actually. We also kind of mentioned Netflix CMO Marion Lee, McDonald's Global CMO Morgan Flatley. So there's 10 CMOs total, whose work from, the middle of 2024, we're sort of loosey-goosey-ish with this, David and I, but middle of 2024 to mid-2025, that did, like all the things we said, made a mark in culture, and it had an impact on the business of their brands. And that's pretty key. And, in terms of just how that role has evolved, and a lot of times, you talk to CMOs, I've talked to a lot of CMOs over the years, and a lot of them have described their job as kind of 50% marketing the brand to the public and 50% justifying the role of marketing within their own organization. And it's like, there's always this tension there, but more and more, I mean, really, and you see it, you can hear it in certain earnings results. I think the Gap actually mentioned that Cat's Eye campaign in their earnings. Like there's,
oh, I'm sure they did.
If you can create breakout work, again, maybe going back to fragmentation, going back to the enthusiasm of fandoms, like this impacts the bottom line in ways that is measurable, whether over the long term or the short. And these leaders are kind of getting recognized for that. I mean, we included Jackie Jantos as one of the CMOs of the year for her work at Hinge.
Yeah.
And our colleague Yaz broke the news last week that she'll now be the new CEO of the dating app as founder Justin McLeod moves on to a new venture. So you're going to see more of that, I think, because the understanding of brand and its role in the business is not getting any less important. So I really like to kind of celebrate these folks who are doing a great job in ways that kind of point to where this work should be headed.
Totally, yeah. And like I was saying earlier, I think Jantos is a great example of someone who really understands her brand and really understands what people are frustrated with about dating apps. I mean, Yaz specifically has spilled a lot of ink about why Hinge is the star of the match group as Tinder loses users and as
talked a lot
other
about it on
companies
this
lose
show.
users.
Had Justin McLeod on, but prior to his now depart, he's still in the match group. He's starting a new company there, but Hinge has been such a rock star this year in what is a declining category.
And it's because she recognizes that interplay between the internet and real life, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like what's it called? Real Love something? I forget what it's called. No Ordinary Love campaign that's all over the subways. Like they got writers to tell real life love stories. And really the crux of that is they took it offline. They went and they met each other in real life. Or there was another one called Actually We Met on Hinge, where these are people who like know each other from before or see each other around, and then they connect on Hinge. And it's like, oh, actually, like there is a little bit of the real world necessary to make this online thing work.
Yeah.
That she's super, super smart about highlighting to people.
Well, their motto for years has been the app that's made to be deleted. And that has become cliche because it's their motto, and every motto does. But back to brand purpose, their whole product roadmap is with that in mind. So it goes back to the whole idea of building brand purpose into your marketing, into your product, and then sticking with that. The Brands That Matter list is on fastcompany.com, a whole bunch of writing and reporting and just really fantastic content is all on fastcompany.com. So go check that out. We'll be back with Jeff and David for Keeping Tabs, but first a quick break followed by Yaz's interview with Instagram VP of Product, Tessa Lyon.
Capital One's tech team isn't just talking about multi-agentic AI. They already deployed one. It's called Chat Concierge, and it's simplifying car shopping. Using self-reflection and layered reasoning with live API checks, it doesn't just help buyers find a car they love, it helps schedule a test drive, get pre-approved for financing, and estimate trade-in value. Advanced, intuitive, and deployed. That's how they stack. That's technology at Capital One.
Instagram is making changes to its user experience. Last week, it launched a feature that gives users a little more control over their Reels algorithm and lets them share their algorithms with friends. The company is also making its content available on TVs, a similar move to YouTube Shorts, if you remember our interview a while back with Kurt Wilms. Yaz, who did this interview before she had her baby, spoke with Instagram's VP of Product, Tessa Lyon, to learn more about these efforts, how the company is dealing with teens on its platform, and how Instagram has evolved over the years as TikTok has taken over.
Tessa, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I want to start by talking about this new feature on Instagram that's rolling out called Tune Your Algorithm. And before we get into more of the business case for it, tell me what that is.
One of the things that we're always trying to do is show people the best possible reels for them. And over the years, I think we've gotten better at that. I think that we started off just after 2020 and slowly started figuring out how to do a good job of predicting people's interests and showing them reels they'd be interested in. And I think we do a pretty good job today, but we don't always get it right. And we know that people's interests change. And what we really want to do is give people control over the experience that they have on Instagram. So this new feature that we're rolling out called Your Algorithm enables you to actually go in and see the interests that we think you have that are powering your algorithm, sort of giving you a behind the scenes view of your algorithm.
Mm-hmm.
But it not only gives you that transparency, it actually lets you take control. So you can actually remove interests that we think you have. You can add new interests that you want to see more of, or you can tell us things that you just don't want to see at all anymore. And our hope with this is that it helps people really feel empowered to make their reels their own, so that when they're spending time on Instagram, they're spending time with the stuff that matters most to them, even if those interests are evolving quickly.
I'm curious, I feel like a big part of reels, though, is discovery. How do you basically design it in a way that they're still discovering things, but you're not necessarily making as much of a value judgment?
Yeah, it's a great question. We think a lot about how the ideal Reels experience is one that helps you go deeper on the interests you already have and then discover new interests that you might not even know about.
Yeah.
And getting that balance right is really important. So I'd say a couple of things. One is that this feature, Your Algorithm, is one input we have into your Reels experience. So even if you add a handful of different interests, it's not that that's going to be the only content that you see in Reels. That's just going to be an important input to us when we're thinking about the most relevant stuff to show you. But you're still going to see other content as well. The other thing I would say is that in an interesting way, as we've been playing with it and getting feedback from people who are using it, it's actually sort of a nice way to help you discover new interests more quickly. And so one example, this is maybe a niche thing, but I found a kitten under my car a couple of weeks ago.
Oh,
and
did you keep it?
Yeah. And I'm
Good.
not a cat person. So after like years of not being a cat person, I'm
It's
now
the
like,
universe's cat distribution system.
yes.
You
Okay. So I
just
literally was like, what am I going to do with this cat? And then a guy on my team sent me that definition of like the cat distribution system. And I was like, okay, I guess I have a cat now. But like, I've never had a cat before. I've never really cared about cats before. There's no content in my reels about cats. You know, I have 3 little kids. I see so much parenting content. But like suddenly I know this sounds weird, like I'm really interested in kittens. Like I want to know how to be a good kitten mom. And so I use your algorithm and I added kitten as a new interest. And so this thing that I've like never seen any reels about before that I actually really want to discover more of, instantaneously, I'm able to get a bunch of content that's now really relevant for me. And I didn't have to wait for like Instagram to learn that. I was able to just say like, hey, I'm actually interested in this right now. And, you know, I have friends who've told me like my husband and I are watching Pluribus right now and we're obsessed with it. And some of our friends are like, you guys keep talking about these inside jokes and we don't know what you're talking about. But like, what a great way to say like, hey, if you're interested in learning more, like add this as an interest, start discovering it, see these memes, see if you want to watch the show.
I love the idea of seeing the memes before watching the show.
That's how I discovered shows. Yeah. I totally, friends were sending me memes and I was like, who is Carol? Like, what's going on?
Who is Carol? Yeah.
And then I was like, I need to check this out. And so, you know, in some ways it's like, we're always trying to think about how to help creators find their audiences, how to help people discover new interests. And I think giving people control over that experience can actually be part of that discovery process.
Gotcha. And I'm curious, you know, when you were deciding whether to implement it, was that from demand from customers? Like, what was the sort of impetus for it?
It actually emerged as a meme on Threads 2 years ago, where people on Threads started saying, dear algorithm. And like some of them would say things like, you know, dear algorithm, connect me with more writers and books. Or some of them would say like, dear algorithm, I just don't want to see any like politics anymore. I'm over it. And it was kind of just people like expressing what they wanted from their Threads experience. But you know, a lot of our feature development and product work really comes from listening to our users. And so this kind of concept that people were playing with on Threads, we were like, wait, that's really cool. And you know, people, when they're talking about their Instagram experience, often talk about like my Instagram. Like they really personify it in a way. And we hear people all the time say like, you know, tell me what the algorithm is, or like, tell me what's behind the algorithm. And so we knew there was interest from users to better understand why they're seeing what they're seeing and to be able to influence it. And the truth is, like, until recently, it wasn't really possible for us to do this at scale. But this is a feature that uses AI to help us basically enable people to talk to the algorithm. And, you know, what we're starting with is sort of a first version of it. I think it'll get more and more sophisticated over time. You know, right now, the way in which you talk to the algorithm through your algorithm is with interest, right? It's like saying, I want to see more kittens. I want to see, you know, less politics. But what if you could just say like, hey, I'm having a bad day. I just want to see fun, uplifting content. Or what if you could say something like, hey, it's the start of the new year. I really want to see less content that's making me feel social pressure and more content that's helping me lean into like my wellness goals, right? And like, there's a lot of ways that we could imagine evolving this with AI to really enable people to just speak in like normal English and have their algorithm respond to them and understand them. And so that was the original motivation, just hearing from people that this was something they wanted and then realizing that the technology had gotten to a place where we could actually start to deliver on it.
When I first heard about the feature, it reminded me a little bit of Blue Sky. And then I thought some more and I was like, no, you guys are not letting people control it to the extent that they won't get served commerce and ads. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So when you come to Instagram today, you see a mix of content, right? You see accounts that you follow. You see ads from brands that we think you're going to be interested in. You see recommendations. And we think that combination is really important. You know, the fact that you can come to Instagram and see stories from your best friends and reels from your favorite creators, but then also discover new interests and new brands. That mix, I think, is actually really unique to us and something that I think is an important piece of how we're going to continue to evolve. And so right now with your algorithm, it's only working on reels. And yeah, you can't say, I don't want to see any ads. You know, there's certain things that we're not able to deliver on, whether that's because, you know, ads are how we power a free service or because there's things that we just technically can't do yet. You know, like we hear people sometimes say like, I just don't want to see any more of my friends' kids. Like we actually just like can't deliver on that right now. But like, I don't know, maybe one day we could. And maybe
I mean, you can mute your friends.
You can mute your friends, but I feel like some people are like, I just don't want to see their kid content. But, you know, I think that over time we'll get better and better at understanding how people want to use this feature and figuring out the best way to deliver on it. And look, my expectation isn't that this is some huge engagement driver. I think for some people it will be. Like for me, being able to add kittens and see kitten content has actually been like really fun and like a new form of content. But I think for most people, it's just going to be a way to improve.
I have to believe you'll be able to target people better with ads though, right? If they're telling you what they want, you will then be able to serve them like, you may want to buy this in a more targeted way.
Yeah, right now, the system isn't influencing the ad system, but all the things that people, engage with on Instagram are sort of how we better understand them. And so, one of the things we hear from people a lot is that a lot of people really like their Instagram ads and feel like they find brands that they wouldn't otherwise have found or creators they wouldn't otherwise have discovered. And so I think like better personalizing ads is something that we've spent a lot of time doing in recent years, oftentimes to great effect. And I think that'll continue to be important. The piece that I focus on is really what we call the sort of organic side, the consumer side of the non-ad content. And there I also think that people just deserve and want more control.
You've been, rolling this out to certain creators. Have you had any kind of unexpected feedback from them?
The feedback has been pretty positive. I will say like oftentimes when we make a change on Instagram, we get a range of feedback. And I think that makes sense. We have 3 billion users.
Yeah.
A lot of people, especially creators, really value the stability and community that they have built through their hard work.
Yeah, nobody wants, the algorithm to change overnight and wreck your business,
and we
right?
Really,
yeah.
And we can talk more about that because we really try hard to not change it overnight in any kind of unpredictable way. But, this has been one that has gotten really positive response from people. And I think it's because on one hand, there was more like mystery about the algorithm than we intended, right? And I think that there's lots of reasons for that we can talk about, but I think that was true. And so, at a very basic level, this helps to demystify it. It helps to say like, hey, these are the top things we think you're interested in. Like maybe we got some wrong, but this is what we think you're interested in.
Yeah.
And then I think that people also really want a sense of control. Like they want to feel like the time they're spending online is meaningful. And like what that is to different people at different parts of their life can vary, which I think is another important reason to give people control. What you want one day could be different than what you want the next day. But I think that notion of control really resonates with people. And I will say like, it's early and this is our first step towards this. Like there's definitely going to be some things that we get wrong. Like you'll add an interest and we'll give you like not the best content for that interest because we're still figuring it out. But I think for the most part, it does kind of work. And like that's why we're rolling it out. And I think people were pleasantly surprised to see that they could steer their algorithm just like using natural speech.
Where do you think this kind of mystifying aspect of the algorithm comes from? Like what are people getting confused about or getting wrong here?
It's a good question. I think that there's different audiences who maybe have different questions about it, right? So if you're a creator and you are posting regularly on Instagram and you see that sometimes your content does really well and sometimes it doesn't do as well, and to you it's like the same quality of content.
Yeah.
That can be both mystifying and also like super frustrating, right? And so I think that for creators makes them feel like it's this sort of black box where, someone is sitting with a dial and like adjusting it, behind the scenes. And then for consumers, there can be delightful experiences where they're like, oh my God, how did Instagram know I was interested in this thing? And like, this was serendipitous and I loved it. Or there can be experiences where you're like, why am I seeing this stuff? I do end up watching it, but it's not actually like fulfilling and meaningful for me. And I just end up seeing more and more of it.
Yeah.
And so I think that whether you're a creator or consumer, you could have different reactions. And I think part of the onus is on us to like better explain how it works. But, it is hard to wrap your head around like there's 3 billion people. There's a ton of content created every day. And while we started off just showing you content from accounts you followed, which was pretty easy for people to understand. It's like, okay, I follow this many accounts, they post this much content, I see it in some kind of order. Once you move to recommendations, which we did a few years ago, where we still have connected content, but increasingly a lot of content is also shared in a recommended way, what we found is it's harder for people to understand, like, okay, there's an endless, basically, amount of content available on Instagram. How are you deciding who sees my content if I'm a creator? And how are you deciding what I see if I'm a consumer? And I think that the answer is there's not just one single algorithm. There's a bunch of different things that we do to try to predict what piece of content will be relevant to different audiences, and a bunch of things that we do to try to help particularly smaller creators start to find their audience and break out among the people who are going to enjoy their content. But it's also true that there are some days where like more people are posting and so there's more competition and so you might get less distribution. It's also true that like sometimes a small thing like one of your reels being reshared by a bunch of people will have an impact in how the algorithm picks it up and just distributes it more broadly. And so even though you might think that 2 reels are of equal value, users might see something different that causes one to sort of get more distribution. But I think all of that can be sort of mystifying. And I think that this helps to sort of ground people in saying like, okay, here are the things we think you're interested in. And I think when people experience it, I don't know if you've played with it yet, you start to sort of be like, oh yeah, that is what I see. And those are things I'm interested in. And at least for me, I was like, actually, one of those is like a dated interest. And I don't really want to see that anymore. And then I was like, oh, actually, there's some holes. And then you can start to take control of this thing that has previously felt like a black box.
Opaque. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the Rings program. What does that entail?
So creators are really at the heart of what we do. Like when we think about what we want Instagram to be, we want it to be the place where people connect over creativity. And we've really seen, from the beginning that creators have been an important part of the Instagram community, but especially in the last few years, creators are doing more now than just producing content. Like creators really are the way in which people organize community, the way in which people discover brands, the way in which people really start to like identify with their interests in like a much deeper way. And so we've wanted to celebrate and recognize that creativity on Instagram. And this year we started off with this program. It's our first year. We started kind of small, and I think we'll continue to build on this. But where we wanted to celebrate the creators that we think are doing amazing things on the platform and who we look up to. Many of us are creatives too, and we look up to these people who are expressing themselves in really authentic ways and building community around that on Instagram.
Now, I understand that AI, as you explained, is obviously helping sort of fine-tune the algorithm, match it to people's interests really well. I think it's fair to say there's also increasingly large amounts of AI slop on any platform. I say this is like, I'm about to give birth and like the AI parenting slop you get served is completely insane.
Do you see like the baby running off of the delivery bed? Have you seen that one? Yeah. That's not going to happen to you, just so you know.
I guess I'm curious how all of this slop is affecting creators, then how you guys think about it, because on the one hand, it's weird and maybe not necessarily what people want to see. On the other hand, I look at the numbers, it has incredibly high amounts of engagement. So, I'm curious as a company or, as somebody looking at the product, how you think about that.
Look, we're really excited about AI, and there's a bunch of ways in which I think AI is going to make the Instagram experience better, and I'll talk about those in a second. I do think that in the early stages of any new technology, you often see a like proliferation of some like weirder use cases of that technology. And that like baby being born and running up the bed, which I've also seen is like an example of that. And content is a very personal thing, right? And so some people will be interested in some content and others won't. And people can be interested in different types of content for different reasons. Like some of the sort of AI sloppy videos we'll have a laugh about and send to my husband and we sort of joke about. But others, I'm just like, this is not what I want to be looking at right now. And so, it starts with being able to understand what is AI-generated media. And one of the things that we're trying to do and are getting better at is disclosing that to people so that, when you see some of this content that's purely generated by AI, you can easily discover that and understand that. But the other thing we're trying to do is just better learn, like, what different people want, right? And so, like, one of the challenges for us is that historically, the way in which we determine what you're interested in on Instagram is you spend time looking at it, you reshare it, you watch it a second time, you click into the profile to learn more about it. All of those signs are generally signs that you're interested in content. They can also be signs that you're like, what's going on here?
What is this?
Right?
Yeah.
Like, what's happening? And that can confuse us and cause us to be like, oh, you really liked this? When actually you're like, no, I was like just trying to understand if this thing was real or not or like what was happening. And so we need to get better at being able to differentiate between those like high intentful signals that someone is actually really enjoying a piece of content versus that they're just sort of like trying to figure out what's happening. And actually,
it's like bad engagement, basically.
It's like, exactly. And like your algorithm feature is a good example of this because one of the top things we see that some people want to see less of is AI slop. And like how helpful for us, right? Like maybe they're actually watching a lot of the videos. I found myself getting in this for a while where like I would watch them and then I would see more of them. Yeah. But I was like, no,
exactly.
Like I don't want this. And so I just put in like AI slop and I'm seeing less. Yeah. And like that's going to be one that's an example of something that we're going to get better at over time, like as our ability to detect this content improves. And so I think you'll see us continue to make improvements there if people tell us they don't want to see it. Other people, like young people love resharing this content. They think it's funny. They're having fun with their friends talking about it. It's sort of like a new expression of a meme in some ways in some cultures. And for them, cool. But there's tons of ways in which AI is going to enable creators to better express themselves and connect with their audiences. And that's the piece that really excites us. Like, we really see ourselves as being in service of creatives and helping people connect around and over that creativity. And I think that, whether it's tools like Restyle, which we're working on, or other creative features that make it just like easier for creative people to tell their stories and express themselves without needing all of the infrastructure and budget that maybe used to be required to do that type of editing. I think that's super promising and exciting. I think it's going to enable more people who don't see themselves as creators today to try to express themselves in new ways. And I think that's really cool. And then I think it's also going to help us a lot with helping people discover new interests. AI is one of the reasons that we're able to better deliver on your algorithm. We're thinking about ways of improving our search experience to be more conversational and help people go deeper on the things that they're excited about. And so, I'm really excited about all of this. And I think it's going to continue to sort of shape the way in which we help people express and connect in the next few years.
How hard is it for you guys at this point to detect, and I know this changes week to week, by the way, because we obviously see AI-generated videos get better and better and better, but to detect, your Tilly Norwoods at this point?
Yeah, so there's a few different ways to detect. And at the simplest level, I'd say there's three, right? One is that, people can self-disclose. And that's actually great, because there's a lot of creators who are experimenting with AI as a new medium, and I think that's awesome. And they're not trying to mislead anyone. They're just trying to create cool art with new tools. And they can just say, this was made using AI, and then
AI generated. Yeah.
So that's super cool. There's another way, which is sort of these industry standards that are increasingly emerging where, if you're creating with certain creative tools, the content gets sort of marked in a way that, technology is able to detect, to say, this was created using AI generated media. And that's great, because then if the content goes, is shared across platforms, it's everyone can understand that it was created using AI generated media. So also great, and something that we're working on as well. And then the third is for us to do what we've historically done with content, which is essentially build what we call classifiers that are, ways of identifying if a piece of media has certain attributes or not. So, you might have a classifier for, is this hate speech or is this violence? And we can build classifiers to see if something is AI generated media. The classifier is only as good as the data that we train it on. And so, since this is a quickly evolving space, being able to do a good job of predicting accurately and wholly AI generated media is going to be something we have to continue to invest in.
I'm going to explain this very poorly, so forgive me, but I know Meta has been making some efforts to protect creators' IP. So, there was a new feature announced where if you shared something, I think it has to be shared on both Instagram and Facebook, but basically it stops people from stealing that or resharing it without a creator's permission. Tell me about those efforts and what that looks like.
We talk about this oftentimes with the word originality. And what we're talking about is that we want to build a content ecosystem that values original content and the creators who produce it. And what we see on Instagram, and I think we see this on Facebook and across social media too, is someone will create something awesome, funny, cool, beautiful, whatever it is. And then different accounts might reshare it, repost it, maybe put their own twist on it or their own spin on it, but oftentimes just
reshare it. Yeah.
Blatantly share it. And, there's a version of that where they're trying to boost and distribute an up and coming creator that's cool. We actually built a repost feature that we hope is a way that accounts can do that. There's another sort of version of this, which is just part of internet culture, which is this notion of remixing and taking different inputs and building your own riff on them, which is also cool. And if you really add your own spin and you also give credit, then that's
it's kind of, it's your own thing.
Yeah, that's
it's cool.
Kind of how culture, evolves.
Mm-hmm.
But the version of it where you're just ripping off other creators for your own distribution is it's not good. And it's not what we want. And it's not how we're going to build a healthy ecosystem or reward creators over the long run. And so we've made a lot of progress here in recent years, and we're going to continue to have to do so. But we are reducing the distribution of accounts that repeatedly just repost different content from other creators in order to create more space for those original creators. And we're trying to do this in a way that's transparent, where we say to those accounts hey, this is not behavior that we want. So maybe you were well-intentioned and you didn't know. Maybe you were not well-intentioned, but regardless, this is not what we want. You need to change your posting habits and content strategy. And we hope that they'll evolve with us. And if they don't, they're just going to get less distribution so that we can reward the people who actually do the work.
There's a popular meme, me and my husband have definitely sent it to each other, but it basically says something like, and this is very millennial, but it's like, I don't use TikTok. Instead, I watch TikTok content a week later on Reels.
Yes. Thank you for saying a week later, because I think the original meme like 4 years ago was 2 weeks later, but I think we've gotten better.
So I want to hear what you think about that, and then how you think about sort of competing for eyeballs or competing for getting the same content or different content and getting people to watch it first. Tell me about all that.
Well, look, the specific point on like recency of content is an important element, I think, of building a vibrant, culturally relevant, entertaining community, right? Like you don't want to feel like you're seeing content that's 2 weeks old. And I think it's fair to say that 4 years ago, Reels felt that way.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we've made a ton of progress. We actually look at how many impressions are on content that was posted in the last 2 days. And we've made significant progress on that metric in just the last year. And we know that we have more room to go. But, taking a step back, when we think about what we want Instagram to be, it's not just about competing head to head with any one other experience. Like, to me, the magic of Instagram is this point I made before, which is you can find entertaining content and connect with your friends, with creators around that content. You have the ability to sort of like come in, share a story, see something that your favorite creator posted, dive into Reels, have a DM conversation with your friends about those Reels. It's having all of that in one place that really like connects you over the creative stuff you're finding. And so that to me is the core of who we are and who we're going to continue to be. That said, we need to be best in class at each of those pieces if we really want to do that well. And one of those pieces is having the most entertaining, fresh, relevant, original content for you. And so we've actually broken down all the different attributes that we think matter to building that kind of ecosystem, and we're just working on them. We've made a ton of progress. We have more to do. And I think that, what we're seeing, at least in the data, is that meme has become just less true. And I think that hopefully like 2026 is the year that meme is entirely irrelevant. And that would be success for me.
Do you see more people, I mean, and I caveat this with like understanding that there's 3 billion people on the platform and everybody uses it differently. But at this point, do you see more people using it for discovery, or do you see more people using it as a means to like talk to their friends? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. It's a great question. I mean, the honest answer is what we see is people are doing both and that they kind of reinforce each other. So, if you think about Instagram over the last several years, Reels and messaging, those two things, which are kind of at the heart of what you're saying, because Reels is a lot about discovery and messaging is a lot about that communicating with each other. They've been the two things that have driven the majority of our growth, and whatever kind of attributes you want to look at. And the behavior that we generally see is like people discover something fun. They share it to their friend. It starts a conversation. They're having that conversation. They see more things that they're both interested in. We're actually building some features that are in that intersection, like one feature called Blend, where you can actually like blend your algorithm with someone else and like go deeper on the things that we think you're both interested in. It's sort of a small thing that we're experimenting with now, but like kind of a fun thing. My husband and I have a blend, and like it's super fun to watch it at night. But we really see these two things as being like an important kind of, we talk about like a flywheel. It's like you discover new things you're interested in, you talk to your friends about them, and that's like the sticky magic that keeps you feeling like you're connecting over that creativity. And both of those things have been really important drivers for us. And we see that pretty much around the world.
Instagram is also exploring a TV experience.
Yeah.
Tell me why.
Yeah, I don't know what your experience is like at night, but we have 3 little kids. And my husband and I, after we get our kids to bed and, clean the kitchen and finish doing our work and whatever else, we'll often sort of like need to veg out on the couch and like want to relax and unwind together. And the way that it works in our house is generally like my husband spends like 20 minutes trying to pitch me on a new show. This is if there's not a new episode of Pluribus, which I'm obsessed with and I always want to watch. But if it's not that, then, he's like trying to pitch me on like a new show we should watch. And I'm sitting there like scrolling through Reels, finding funny things, sending them to him. And like 20 minutes go by and then we're like, it's too late. We should go to bed. The kids are going to be up in like 5 hours. And we just sort of like pass out. And what we have found, like I found this in my own family, and I think a lot of users have found this, is a lot of the joy that we have is like connecting over these like creators or these funny moments that we find on Reels and we want to share. And like, it's, there's ways of doing that today. You reshare them to each other. Cool. You have this blend feature. That's super fun. But like, why not just bring that to the big screen when you're hanging out with your spouse, with your roommates, with, with whoever it is. So we've seen that a lot of users have said that they, especially young people, that they would want to watch Reels and the creators they follow on Reels on their TV. And oftentimes what they say is they want to do that with their friends. And so this is super early for us. We're, launching our first version of this month. We're going to launch on Amazon and on Amazon Fire TV. And I'm really curious to see what people think. I think we're early in this journey, and I think that building an amazing TV experience takes time. I think you've seen that from a lot of other players in this space. And so we're, humble about where we're starting. But I will say, like, just using it myself, like, it's super fun to be able to, like, bring this stuff that right now is kind of like in our DM thread and like bring it into our living room and hang out and like discover those shared interests and like connect with them together.
We found, working on this podcast, that there's sort of two lengths of content people respond to, right? As far as our YouTube strategy, which is short clips, which is the type of stuff we could post on Instagram, or like hour-long conversations. And you guys have Instagram lives, which obviously I think do some of that. But how does that factor into like the product strategy of Instagram? Because I think that's true across a lot of platforms.
Yeah, I think it is true that we see that there are platforms that really succeed with and content that really succeeds in shorter form. And then also this like real resurgence, frankly, recently of longer form. And so this is super top of mind for us. I mean, where we're starting is with the content that we already have on Reels. And on Reels, we go up to 3-minute videos, right? So most videos people watch on Reels are shorter than that, but we do have content that goes up to 3 minutes. And what we're already finding from our early work on TV is that skewing to like the longer side of that window like performs better on TV. So that's one thing we can do, right? Just like the slightly longer, like instead of 15 seconds, if you're sort of a minute to 2 to 3, that tends to be like a sweeter spot for TV. I think a lot of what we hear from users so far as we do research is like what they really want is to see the creators they love on Reels, but on their TV. And so maybe that looks like starting with a few 1 or 2 minute videos. And then maybe over time they want to discover longer form content from those creators. We're early in thinking about that. We're not like directly working on it right now, but it's certainly top of mind as we think about and explore television. And I think we're going to continue to sort of figure out the best way for people to engage. What we're starting with on TV is, when you first open the experience, you land on these channels, and the channels are based on the interests that we think you have or ones you tell us. So it actually is powered by a lot of the same system that powers your algorithm. So, when I added like kittens to my algorithm and then I opened my TV app, my third channel was kittens.
Oh, you see okay.
Which,
that makes sense.
It's fun because like my husband and I adopted this kitten together and like we're both on this journey. But also like...
But it's divided up into like interest channels.
Exactly. It's interest channels. And so it's short reels from a range of different creators, but it enables us to sort of be like, okay, we're in this mood right now. Like one of the other things that we get a lot of is Vince Gilligan, who's the creator of Pluribus, like is doing all these cool interviews right now about the show. And so like after we watch an episode, I'm like, all I want to do is like go deeper on this right now. And like a way that we can go deeper is by opening up that channel on Reels.
Mm-hmm. It's like the new Wikipedia. Normally you watch a show and you're like...
or the post show, like on Bravo when they do like the like behind, like debriefing.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you see a lot of that. And I think I think there are really strong like fandom communities on Instagram, and being able to bring people together around those moments and actually let them like watch that content together and like that behind the scenes content together, I think is cool. So again, super, super early, humble about where we're beginning, but excited about this broader space and excited also just about the opportunity to like help creators connect with audiences in this new way.
Now when I watch TV, I get a lot of ads about Instagram for teens at the moment. Additionally, there's been some new sort of regulatory requirements in Australia around teens being on the platform. I guess there's two parts to this. There's one, I feel like teens on Instagram and mental health has been a conversation for an extremely long time.
Yeah.
And why does now seem like kind of an inflection point when it comes to taking big like PR forward steps about it? And then two, tell me about how this all fits into the product strategy.
This is something we take incredibly seriously. I mentioned this. I have 3 little kids. They're too young to be on Instagram now, but I think a lot about the fact that they one day will be. And that's a heavy responsibility. And so the thing that we've been focused on for many years now is building age-appropriate experiences for teens. And I think we've made a lot of progress there. And some of the most significant things we've done have been like last year launching teen accounts, which for those who don't know, teen accounts are age-defined like settings essentially for users under 18, where we default them into our safest settings. So that means defaulting into private accounts, limiting the people who can contact them, limiting the content they can see, and importantly, giving their parents, if the parents want, supervision over what their teens are doing on Instagram. And we launched teen accounts last year. We actually announced just last month that we are going even further on the content side. And the content that teens see in teen accounts is going to be guided by PG-13 criteria and guidelines. So the idea being like, if the things you see if you're on Instagram are going to be comparable to what you'd see in a PG-13 movie. We also know that for some parents, PG-13 is actually too mature for what they want their teens watching. And so we have an even more restrictive setting that's more restrictive than PG-13 that the parents can opt their teens into. So we've been building these kinds of controls for parents and these settings for teens for quite a while. But one of the things we've realized is we've got to make it really, really simple for parents to have peace of mind that their teens are opted into the right age-appropriate experiences without it having to consume the parents' time to get all that right. My kids are like, when we travel, have an iPad, and just thinking about like the work that I have to do to like set it up to make sure the right apps and the right access and all of that like is a lot. And so we want to give parents peace of mind.
Kids know how to get around this stuff. Like,
I will say that I think that is very true of the internet. And that's a good question for, as it relates to this Australia legislation that you mentioned, because I think it's true. Like, we've all been teenagers. Teenagers are resourceful and clever. And so if teenagers have access to the internet, they have access to a lot of things, right? And that's why our perspective is that the right answer for creating age-appropriate experiences for teens is not to ban the apps that are building age-appropriate experiences for teens. It's to actually support more of that and say, look, we should have age verification. Parents should be able to have control over what their teens are doing on their devices and visibility into that. And we should make sure that those experiences default to the safest settings, whether that's about who can contact teens, the content that they can see. We are capable of doing this, and we are trying to do this. I think that the legislation, like you mentioned in Australia, that cuts off some social media apps while leaving teens able to access the rest of the internet is just going to have the effect of shutting them off from their friends and the communities that they care about while pushing them to less safe, less age-appropriate experiences online. And as a parent, that's not what I would want for my kids. What I would want is to feel like they had access to certain apps that I was able to monitor and to trust that those apps were defaulting them into experiences that I felt okay with, and that if I didn't feel okay with those defaults, I was able to control them as the parent. And that's the thing that we're going to stay focused on building.
So just so I understand the sort of Instagram for teens experience, they have to upload some form of ID. Like, how does that work when you sign up?
Yeah, so this is a great question. And this is actually, when you ask about legislation and sort of an area where I think legislation can be more helpful, we are working on age verification. And I think that, as a parent, the thing that I would find really helpful for age verification is if that happened like at the device level, right? Rather than having every single app have to age verify. If you could be like, this is a phone or an iPad.
Because I'm also thinking you could probably just create an account and claim you were born in, 1982.
So you totally could, but we take a lot of steps to try to catch those instances of age lying. So one thing that happens is teens will like try to lie about their age, and then they'll start wishing, all their friends a sweet 16, right? And so we're like, oh, amazing that you are 25. That's another fun fact is like not everyone, a lot of people when they lie about their age defaults to the year 2000. So we actually have very noisy data if we don't control for this because, so you're like, oh, wow, like what a bumper crop of births in like the year 2000.
That's so good.
And so there are definitely teens who are going to try to lie about their age.
Once you find like that kid who's claimed their birthday is in the year 2000 and is wishing happy birthday to all their 16-year-old friends, like, do you basically send them a message being like, we think you're a teen, prove otherwise? Like,
we'll do things like that. Yeah. We'll block the account. I mean, you can't violate our community standards and lying about your age is a violation. And so we'll say to you, like, you need to prove your age with ID, with school ID, with whatever it is. And so absolutely, we don't just enable them to sort of continue. Anytime you take these actions, right, where you're trying to make decisions about something based on a lot of signals, right? Like we have a lot of signals about people tell us the age they are, the way they post, the people they cluster with, and so on. When you build classifiers to do this, you sort of have to make a trade-off between like how often you catch everyone and how many false positives you get.
Yeah.
Right? There's a trade-off there. And we've been really willing to say, like, there's going to be some false positives. Like, we're going to get it wrong sometimes because
It's
this
just
is
like
so
someone replying, "No, I'm just a creepy guy."
right.
Like,
In which case, like part of teen accounts is like you can't reach out to people who are, adults can't reach out to teens is another one of the defaults of teen accounts. But we will have people who are like, no, like I'm 19, I like really am, and so it's like cool, just verify your age, like that's fine, right? Like, but we're gonna get it wrong sometimes in both directions. We'd rather get it wrong on the side of safety and on the side of holding a high bar on age verification, but it'd be a lot easier if people just had to verify at the device level.
I have kind of a speed round for you about your Instagram habits.
Love it.
Favorite account to follow?
Ooh, this is a good one. There's this creator I love named Carolyn Chambers who has 4 young kids. This is a good follow for you.
Yeah.
She was a recipe developer and she just posts a bunch of like great mom and food content that is like super relevant, super fun, and in like a really authentic tone that I love. She's just like building a new house for her family in Carmel, and like so there's a bunch of interior content, but like she's sort of someone who tracks with my stage of life and has built an awesome community that you really like you feel the community in the content. So that would be my favorite right now.
When you were tuning your algorithm, what was one interest you removed and what's one that you added? Sounds like cats was the added one.
So the other one I added that's really niche, but I highly recommend, was HOA meetings. Hear me out. Okay, there is this subculture of people who share videos from homeowner association meetings where people are like debating the paint color of like a neighbor's house or like the rules. And for some reason, like these crack me up. I find them extremely funny.
Oh yeah, I'm on a Reddit channel about stuff like that.
Oh,
so
really? Okay.
I get it.
I was at a friend's birthday party and someone was mentioning that he sees all these reels about homeowner association meetings. And I was like, that's totally my type of humor, but I don't see them. And we were literally in the process of building your algorithm. And I was like, perfect test case. It took a few days for me to find like the right niche within homeowner association meetings, but I've really found it now, and it's like a super highlight for me. And then one, see less. I mean, every once in a while, I like to take a break from politics, not always, but like sometimes you just have a week where you're like, not this week for me. And so that's one that I kind of add to see less, and then I remove it, then I add it back to see less, and it's sort of a dynamic one in my algorithm.
What age are you going to let your kids join Instagram?
Candidly, I think 13, but I think that it will depend on the kid. My kids are young right now, so we have a few years to figure this out. And I know having 3, how different they are. So I do think it's possible that what's right for one of them isn't going to be right for the other. And that's why I'm more in favor of parents being empowered to make decisions and like governments being empowered to make those decisions. But my current default is 13. And I'm excited for, my kids my son is like really obsessed with certain types of like crafts and building and Legos. And like, I just feel like he's going to find his community of like artists and makers. And I'm excited about that for him.
Well, my last question is looking ahead to 2026, coming up very soon. What are your priorities here? What can you say about the direction Instagram is heading over the next year?
At the end of the day, the thing that motivates me, and I think all of us at the team, is we want to be the app that people love the most, that they love spending time on, and that they love because they're finding the things that they care about and they're really building community around it, whether it's like talking to their best friend or their spouse, or whether it's, the way that I feel about this creator I follow, feeling like I'm part of a broader community of moms who are kind of going through the same stage of life. We want that to be the experience people have when they come to Instagram. And there's a lot that we need to continue to do to get that right. And so, whether that means using AI to help us better connect you to your interests and help you discover and refine what those interests are, or whether it means, launching new creative tools to help the next generation of creators be able to express themselves in ways that maybe they weren't able to do before. And then ideally bringing all of that to people in their living room and making it really work on TV, which is super early right now, but really, really excited about. So one of the things I think about is like the thing we're trying to do in the world hasn't changed, but the way in which we do it does change as people's habits shift and as the technology advances. But we're going to stay focused on helping people connect around that creativity.
Well, this was great. Thank you so much. And you've reminded me that I have a Pluribus episode to watch.
Oh my gosh,
tonight.
I'm so jealous of you.
I think I have one.
I have to wait a whole week.
Almost all caught up, but
okay, it's a good one. It's a good one. Let me know what you think.
Okay, we're back with Jeff, and it's time to wrap up the show with Keeping Tabs. This is where each one of us shares a story, trend, or piece of pop culture we're following right now. Jeff, since you're our guest, what are you keeping tabs on?
Okay, well, first I got two, but like the first one's just a quick one. But mostly we were talking about brands earlier. We're coming to the end of the year, so I'm really keeping tabs on how brands and marketers are going to be embracing all the holiday sports, especially like the NFL and the NBA. And we're going to start to see, if not we haven't already started to see, the early days or the early sort of signs of Super Bowl ad season are starting to emerge. So
I think I've started to see some teasers of some,
yes,
some
exactly.
stuff coming up. I'm seeing them pop up.
Between that and I'm also, again, volume 2 of Stranger Things. I mean, the brand partnerships, and we've talked about this on Brand New World, but like so far to me, Gatorade and Nike are the two winners for that show so far, in my opinion, in terms of appearances in the show. So I'll be interested to see how that evolves if they keep up their cameos in volume 2.
Yeah. Gatorade, also big cameo in Pluribus.
Oh, really?
Anyone watching Pluribus?
No.
We do not pay for Apple TV.
Pluribus is great. You should all watch Pluribus.
All right.
I saw a tweet today that's like, I love Vince Gilligan's work. I wish Albuquerque was real.
You're from New Mexico,
Nice.
too. So.
Yeah, but fuck Albuquerque.
Okay. Well,
Santa Fe for life.
You're from Santa Fe, which is objectively the better city.
My second one is a little more esoteric, but like, what if I told you there was a Jackass before Jackass? And I know both of you are much younger than I am, but what if I told you there was a Jackass?
I'm listening.
Are we talking about bum fights? What are we talking about?
But this pre-Jackass was, what if I told you it was Canadian, but more violent and drunk?
Sign me up.
Why did you set this up like a 30 for 30?
Okay, well, let me tell you. Well, actually,
you?
this is very close to a 30 for 30. There's a new documentary on what are infamous in a certain culture, Whiskey snowboarding film series from the late 90s. And I mean, they've been cited, and he's actually in the doc. Jeff Tremaine, who's one of the guys who started Jackass, called it a major, like it was a major inspiration. And basically, these were snowboarding films out of Vancouver, basically, and Whistler specifically, that were huge in the snowboarding culture of like disturbing level of kind of giddy violence and pranks that were incredible to watch as a teenager. But as I think back to it and also like rewatch some of it,
as a father,
absolutely disturbing. And there's always this underlying darkness to it, actually. Like there's a lot of fighting, there's a lot of just like booze. Like if you took Jackass and they were just like smashing beer bottles on their heads in between things, like just really crazy. Yeah. There's a recurring character named Boozy the Clown who, before Jackass ever happened, and this is on camcorders, would ride through grocery stores on a dirt bike and stuff. So it was like really insanely punk rock. But there's another story there. And filmmakers Clayton Larson and actually an old friend of mine, Ryan Stutt, they've spent the last couple of years interviewing all these main players from those films. And these are people who are giants, veterans in snowboarding. Anyone who's in snowboarding culture would know the names, Sean Johnson, Sean Kearns, Dano Pendergrass, like a lot of big names that really dig into some of these issues behind the behavior, but also just the role it played in early snowboarding culture. And so it's called Our Kind of Chaos, and it premiered at the Whistler Film Festival and won the Audience Award there. And I really can't wait to see where this film gets a wider release, because anyone who knows anything about brands and youth culture, early snowboarding and skateboarding and surfing is like, that is, at least for me, that's where I kind of got my early taste of how brands make emotional connections with people. And that culture is fascinating. And looking back to the 90s and hearing some of the stories behind it and the fallout of it is always awesome to see. So I look forward to seeing, hopefully that gets wider release and you Americans get to see it too.
David, what are you keeping tabs on?
It's also brand related, but only in that it's an insane brand that shouldn't exist. I don't know how familiar we are with...
You're going to name my favorite brand.
Oh, yeah? You're a huge fan of Tyra Banks' Smize and Dream ice cream?
No, I don't, but I do know their PR person for that.
Wait, what's it called?
Amazing.
Oh,
It's
God.
called Smize and Dream. So those
Yeah.
uninitiated, a smize is when you smile with your eyes. I'm sure Tyra Banks has tried to copyright it. If she hasn't successfully,
Yeah,
she's
was
tried.
It's like
her
the
whole
shart
thing.
of smiling.
Yes, but good.
Yeah.
You want to be smizing. You don't want to be sharding.
Okay,
for yourself.
listen to David, kids.
So like
Boozy the Clown says you want to be smizing, you don't want to be sharding.
So like post America's Next Top Model, post like trying to figure out something to do with herself, she started this brand called Smize and Dream Ice Cream, and she opened a few shops. I think a few in the at least one in the US was like in DC. I don't think that did well.
It was a pop-up.
So she has decided to relocate. She relocated it to Sydney, Australia.
I thought you were going to say Saudi Arabia.
Oh my God, no.
Where everyone's so she relocated to Suda.
Yeah, she's going to be the main ice cream provider of Neum.
The Riyadh Comedy Festival, sponsored by Smize and Dream Ice Cream.
She has it in Sydney, and it's the only place that this brand exists, and she lives in Sydney now. But she did like a mini press tour last week here in the US to bring her invention,
Ice cream?
her invention to the world. It's called
God.
hot ice cream.
Oh.
And according to people who've been there, another podcast I listen to, Who Weekly, has really been on this. They went to the activation of the brand event at our tech house in Chelsea Market because, of course.
Oh, yeah.
And it's hot chocolate. She's like, it's not custard and it's not a milkshake. And it's like, it's Swiss Miss. They said it tasted like Swiss Miss.
I was wondering whether it was just like, okay, this is just literal like soup, like hot soupy stuff, or if it was like deep fried ice cream, which also already exists.
Neither of those, but also bad. And the funniest part is that like she released a single around it, and there's a character called Santa Smize
Just keeps coming.
who the lore, like, it predates Santa Claus, and Santa Claus stole Santa Smize's whole deal, and you can only resummon Santa Smize if you say Smize and Smize at the same. If you say Santa while smizing, it's unbelievably
Candyman.
silly. Exactly.
Yeah.
In the mirror 3 times, and it's just been really.
If you say smize 3 times in the mirror, you shart.
Oh,
That's
man.
the brand activation.
1 week without
We were
Yaz,
waiting
and we're
for.
sharding.
Yeah, seriously, this is not my keeping tabs, but I do want to say there was a recent study by, I'm forgetting who did the study, but they were reputable. It was making the rounds in a lot of the podcast trade publications. That was basically analysis of the gender breakdown of podcast hosts in the like top 100 of each like brand, each podcast category.
Which we're in.
We've been sparingly in. Amongst business podcasts, 90% of hosts are men.
What?
So now that Yaz is on maternity leave, our first episode is 3 white dudes around a microphone. Who would have thought? Finally, they let 3 white guys host a podcast.
I'm Canadian, if
Latino.
that counts.
You're Latino. I'm sorry.
But yeah.
I apologize.
No, it's fine. Josh, what is your actual keeping tabs?
Speaking of podcasts, have you been following the release of Washington Post's AI podcast?
Only in that I've seen some screenshotted tweets about it.
It's basically their internal version of what is like Google's deep dives, but that is AI podcasts that you can generate from Washington Post reporting into AI deep dive style.
It's like the Notebook LM thing, but for the Washington
Yeah,
Post.
exactly. The problem is it's getting a lot of stuff very wrong, hallucinating straight up quotes, straight up fabricated quotes. And I'm mostly keeping tabs on this because, like, one, of course, we literally talked about AI hallucinations on the podcast last week. So, that's still a thing. But in testing, then this is from reporting from Semaphore, from Max Tanny and Semaphore. In testing, roughly 2/3 to up to 84% in testing rounds and free rounds of testing were flagged as like failed scripts from when they were testing it. And they were like, you know what? We're going to move forward with releasing this anyways.
Someone's
Cool.
in the boardroom right now going, who could have seen this happening? Who could have predicted this?
That's the thing that's driving me crazy. It's like, I'm not actually like, the Google deep dive stuff, like, I think it's a novelty. I think it's like, it's helpful in a sense, to the extent that like it can summarize a bunch of stuff and put it into a digestible format for you. I think that is perfectly fine of a product, contingent on its accuracy level. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if it's not accurate and it's hallucinating, then that's a major problem. And it's what we've been seeing with AI across the board. It's one thing for Google to do that in a Notebook LM product. They're not a journalistic institution. Washington Post is a journalistic institution. And like, if 2/3 of our stories were riddled with errors at Fast Company,
it's a lawsuit waiting to happen.
think about that. Not even like a lawsuit. We'd also just be out of business. You know what I mean?
Well,
Although I guess the Daily Mail still exists. It's a good place to end it. And that's it for Most Innovative Companies. Jeff, thanks for joining us. David, thank you for guest hosting for our first Yazless episode.
Truly anytime. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, guys.
It's always fun to work with you.
Our show is produced by Blake Odom, Sam Gabauer, Hawa Atori, and Mariam Kiporoitse. Editing by Matt Toder. Mix and sound design by Tad Wadhams and Nicholas Torres. And our executive producer is me. Remember again to subscribe, rate, and review, and we will see you next week.